Well, thank you for being a part of tonight's
Muchas
online
gracias por ser
seminar. So here's what I want to do. I want to talk about some of the reasons why that I think our young people are facing the usage issue. Why are they using substances? And not only why are they using, but what are they using? And then how can we collectively make a difference? And I know that we have parents and grandparents, we have educators, we have different people, different backgrounds, different understandings of all of this. And so what I want to do is just break it down very simply. I like to get stuff off the bottom shelf where we can all see it and understand it. And so that we can learn together tonight so that we can all make a difference in each and every one of our communities. So here's what we need to know. We need to know this, that addiction begins early. It is said that 90% of those addicted to a substance began using this substance before the age of 18. So here's what we understand. We understand that they're using these substances very early on. And so we ask ourselves the question, then why are they using these substances? Well, I think there's two different reasons. We have an external and we have an internal reason. And the external reasons may go something like this. Many of us can remember, if you, depending on your age, you'll kind of tell yourself this, your age in this, but some of you can remember a Friday night when you would leave to go hang out with your friends or do whatever you did back in the day. And your parents would tell you something like this: don't be drinking, don't be driving, don't be smoking, and certainly don't have sex. And the worst thing that could have happened was maybe there was somebody would come home and a teenager would say, we are expecting a baby. I mean, this was like what would rock the world of your parents. Yet today, our factors are very different. I believe that our internal factors that our kids are dealing with are deeper than maybe the external factors of some of our decades ago, our raising and our growing up. The internal factors that our kids are facing today are things like anxiety, depression, self-harm, and suicide. So our students are dealing overwhelmingly. If you're in the lives of teenagers and you talk to them at all, you'll see that they have great anxiety, that they're anxious and they worry and fearful, and they have a lot of depression. Our students are depressed. They're self-harming themselves, trying to find an outlet for this pain, which sadly, ultimately, sometimes leads to suicide. As a matter of fact, suicide is the second leading cause of death of our young people. We're told that the suicide rates of those ages 12 to 24 grew 60% from 2017 to 2018. That's alarming. Our students are suffering, and many of us are so disconnected, so busy, we don't understand it. We think it's just young people, they're just growing up. We dealt with this, we experienced that, but it's different for these kids. And there's a lot of different factors that could be talked about. We say our kids spend way too much time on screens, on social media. They're getting less sleep because of all of this, less exercise. And of course, because they're so separated, they have less in-person interaction maybe than ever before. But I would also say that I would believe that we also see this in maybe the breakdown of our families. Our families look different. We have a lot more single parent homes than we've ever had before. And so we have a single parent that's working hard, trying to raise the kids, provide. They're going, they're working, they're doing, and the kids are kind of taking care of themselves a lot. We just have a lot of different factors. And then the social media thing. We have kids that are addicted to social media, watching the influence of social media, telling them they need to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way. They're not good enough. They're not pretty enough. All of these different things. We have artificial intelligence that's telling them that they want to be their friend. And if you don't have a friend, you can have an artificial friend. I mean, it's just deep in the layers of what these young people are dealing with. And because of that, here's what we know. COVID was a big deal. I mean, many of us have moved on from COVID like it never happened, but our kids said that they felt uncertainty, they felt fear and boredom and isolation. Many of these kids that didn't know what to do, and we told them that the world was coming to an end and everybody was dying, and there was all this fear, and we shut them off from the world. And then we pick back up and we continue on. But our students, our kids, are still left dealing and reeling from the effects of this pandemic. 44% of them said they felt sad and hopeless. 55% said they experienced emotional abuse, and 11% said they experienced physical abuse during COVID. And yet we've sped the world back up, but our kids are still left dealing with all of this. Because of this, we've been declared in a mental health crisis. In December of 2021, the Surgeon General issued a rare public health advisory stating a devastating mental health crisis among young people. So why are we dealing with this? Why are our students using all of these substances? It's because they're trying to find a way to mask the pain and deal with everything that they are facing. We learned that kids, their connection to school was important. You can see that students who felt connected to their school were less likely to feel sad and hopeless. Students who felt connected to their school were less likely to consider suicide. Students who felt connected to their school were less likely to attempt suicide. And students who were connected to their school said less than half of these students felt connected to their school during the pandemic. So we took something that was a constant. We took something that brought them comfort, and we took that away from them by taking them out of something that was positive for them. And then we understand that our kids have a hard time learning to cope. We have coping complications with our kids. There's avoidance. Our students deal with anger, and they use social media. They overuse it. And then we have substance abuse and use, and then we have self-harm. So as you can see, we've got a lot of different things that our students are dealing with. So when we sit back and we just watch what's happening in our student culture, it would be very easy to dismiss the way they feel, the outlook that they have on the world, the experiences that they've had. This generation has experienced so much. And so it's our responsibility to take the needs of our kids and to serve them and to find the weaknesses, find the vulnerabilities, find those fears, find those anxieties and those points for depression, and try to serve them the best way that we can. And tonight, you're taking an investment in doing this by learning some of the things that our kids are dealing with. So some of this stuff you may be familiar with, some of it you may not. But I want to talk to you about some of the things that our students are using. And of course, alcohol is still one of those. Alcohol is still one of the most commonly used substances, as it has been for generations. But what we have to understand about the alcohol issue is that it's available. It's easy to get. Our kids have easy access to it, but they don't understand is what it does to their body. They're not ready to process it. They're not ready to use it responsibly, which is why they're not allowed to have it. But our kids are using it. It takes about 30 seconds for that first drink of alcohol to hit the brain and to begin to function inside of that brain. That's why that first sip, they say, well, it's that buzz. Oh, that first sip, there's nothing better. Well, it's because it's immediate. It's acting in our kids. And then our kids don't understand the effects of it. Their body starts freaking out. The 3 Ps start kicking in, that their body wants to either pee, puke, or pass out. Their body's trying to process this happening inside of them, and they don't know what to do with it, and they don't have the ability for the judgment, as I call it, predicting the future. In our 20s, men and women begin to develop the ability to predict the future. Some of you can remember when you were young, you would say something like, we did this and we almost died, and it was awesome. And you're looking at a young person going, you almost died, you almost injured yourself. How is that awesome? Well, it's because they didn't have the ability before they started to predict the future. You and I, our brains have developed to the point to where we say, if I do this, the consequences will be this. But young people haven't developed that yet. And so it's our responsibility to help them understand as they take this substance that's readily available for them and try to help them understand the decisions that they're making. When asked why they use this, most teenagers will say, it just numbs the pain. Most teenagers would say it takes me out of the moment. It helps me to forget. It helps me not to feel. It gives me a coping mechanism that I can overcome whatever it is that I'm dealing with. Many of our students who would say that they're using a substance because of anxiety or depression would give this reason as to why. One of the next substances that we see often in our kids is marijuana. Now, many of us have different thoughts and opinions about this marijuana debate that's happening in our world and in our country, and we have different positionings on it. But here's some things that I think it's important for us to understand about where we are. Marijuana is the second most commonly used drug in the state of Alabama. So it's a prevalent drug that's used right here in our state. Teen usage of marijuana is at its highest level in 30 years. In 2019, 30% of teens reported a lifetime use, meaning that they use it all the time, and 22% reported using in the last 30 days. So 30% of our kids have used this, and 22% have said, I've used this in the last 30 days. Now, many of us would say, well, it's just marijuana. What does it matter? It's not really hurting or hurting anybody. But look at this. The average level of THC between 1980 and 2011 was between 2 and 5%. Today, the THC level is around 90%. So what we have to understand is that it's a lot more potent. It's not the same thing that may have been used generations ago. And this is what our kids are using. This is what they're looking for. Now, here's the delivery method. So because we think about it and we go, well, how do they use it and where do they get it? Well, they can be in gummies. There's candy THC. It's in cookies, chocolate, cereal, ice cream, different beverages, brownies, pills, cooking oils, condiments. There are so many different delivery methods for marijuana. This is a image here of different snacks and candies that all have THC. If you take a look at the bags, it's almost hard to even see it in there. I showed someone this picture just this week and they said, oh, my mom eats those all the time. And I said, really? Your mom eats all of these? I said, take a look at these bags and tell me if you can see anything that shouldn't be there. And at further inspection, they said, oh, wait a second. This is not what I thought it was. And they were very confused because they had no idea that this was even a possibility. And this is the danger of what we're buying in our gas stations. We have to be very aware of what's in our gas stations. There was a great seminar done just last month on the gas station drugs. That's very, very important to understand what our kids are buying because this can be used right in front of us and it's not even know that our kids are using it. This is a current round that's on TikTok that these are being sold with The Simpsons branded all over it. So it's all aimed at kids. And we're going to talk about a little bit of that in a moment as well. Another one that you may be very familiar with and you may see everywhere is vaping and the vapes. And I want to take just a moment and I want to break this down for us because this is one of those things that there's so many different opinions. There's so much misinformation about vapes. And so we have to really be able to understand what it is, what's happening with our kids, the dangers of this substance, and what they can do with it and really understand it. So I want to break it down and give you just a little deeper dive into the vapes. Now, vapes entered the market around 2007, and initially they were kind of marketed as a way to help you stop smoking. This is the most commonly used tobacco product among young people since 2014. So cigarettes are almost out. You don't see a young person with a cigarette, but you'll see them using a vape. More than 3 million middle and high school students have used a vape. 27.6% vape every day, with 40% reporting that they've used 20 in the last 30 days. Wow. Disposables are the most commonly used. Refillables are the second most commonly used. And 85% use flavored vapes. And all of this is very important. And you can see some of the most popular brands there as well. Now, these are different types of vapes. You can buy them in all different forms. The disposable are just one-time use, hit a vape, use it, and throw it away. And then you've got all of these different systems all the way up until where it says a mod. And this gives them the ability to really customize their vaping experience to whatever they want it to be. And so there's so many different forms, so many different factors. These are just a few. There's so many different delivery methods that our students are using. They have them that hide them in cups. You can't see it in the cup. They have them where they flow through the drawstrings of a hoodie or sweatshirt. So if you see a young person walking around chewing on the little drawstring of the hoodie sometimes, it very well may be that there's a vape in there, and that's what they're using for the vaping. There's so many different delivery methods for the vapes. And so we have to be aware of what our kids are doing and where they're getting this stuff. This is when vape started with Juul. Juul was one of the first to the market, and they really went after our young people really, really hard. This was back at the launch. And you can see that this is not aimed towards somebody trying to stop smoking. Every ad that you'll see in way that they predicted the way the company would go, who was going to be their customer, they always intended for it to be a young person. All of this was pictures from the launch party, young people, attractive people, bright colors, something that would stand out to a young person, that would get their attention, that would draw them in to all of their ads. They would even use celebrities and models and actors and all these people to make posts, talk about how good the vape was so that everybody would want one. Then the flavors hit. Now, I don't know a lot of people that were out, smoking, that were looking for flavored alternatives. But when you have all of these different flavors like mango and strawberry and all these different fruit flavors, it's just aiming at kids. And so they wanted to get young people addicted to the nicotine early on so they would be their customers for the life of their product. Now, many people have never seen inside a vape. This is literally what our young people are experiencing when they vape. From the tip of the vape, you have chemicals like paint thinner, formaldehyde, you have lead, you have acetone, you have nickel, you have all of these different chemicals that's inside the vape. Not only do you have all of these different chemicals inside of the vape itself, but it heats up. And once it heats up, it begins burning on the inside. Everything that it burns off is also inhaled as well. The other thing about vaping to understand for many of this, like I've heard so many different things. I don't know what's good. I don't know what's bad. But somebody smoking a cigarette, they don't even get 100% of the nicotine out of that cigarette. In a vape, it only activates once you use it. It's not burning while you're holding it. You're literally getting 100% of it every time that you would use a vape. Now, if I ask the question a lot of times with this in the setting of young people, I would ask the question, how many of you think vapes are bad? And you'd have some that would raise their hand. And how many of you think vapes are not harmful at all? You'd have some raise their hand. Some students would say, well, it's just the old saying that what people used to think, it's just a flavored mist or flavored water. There's nothing in it. There's nothing dangerous. And so students are all over the place. They don't fully understand. I still talk to parents and they don't fully understand. They'll say, well, my 14-year-old is vaping, but that's not really that harmful, right? And they don't have a full picture or understanding of the weight of using vapes. And the reason is because the industry didn't want it to be clear. They wanted it to be confusing because if everybody knows what's actually happening, they don't want their young people vaping. People wouldn't be using it, but they want it to be as confusing as possible and paint it as a good thing. I look at it this way, and this is the best way I can help young people understand it about what vape is doing on the inside of you. It's like walking into a bathroom where someone is taking a hot shower. If you've let your shower run hot and steam gets all over the room and it's kind of wet on the inside. And I said, just imagine walking in with a roll of toilet tissue and taking that tissue and just throwing it up on the wall. What happens? It sticks and begins to clump on those walls. And that's the same thing that happens when you are inhaling and ingesting whatever it is that you are taking in from that vape. You have this whole environment set for it just to clump and to grab hold of you inside of your lungs. So the vape is a big deal. The vape is something that is everywhere and our kids are using it. And so we say, well, how do they get it? Well, they get it from what we're talking about tonight. They're getting it from social media, delivery methods from Snapchat. 35% of our young people say that Snapchat is their favorite, TikTok at 30%, Instagram at 22%, and then Twitter and Facebook. So they're getting on these social media platforms. They're talking to people that we don't even know who they're talking to because most of us aren't watching our kids' phones, or if we are, they know how to outsmart us. They know how to go around all of the things that we set in place. So they're getting on all of these social media platforms. And if you don't think it's a big deal, you have to understand the power of social media. Just in 2020, $41.5 billion was spent on advertising. And who are they aiming at? Who are they targeting? They're targeting our children. They have a 12% growth rate year over year, which is unbelievable in business. So they're making a lot of money selling a lot of ads that are all aimed at our kids. So here's what they do. They get on a social media network like say Snapchat or TikTok, and then there's usually like an advertised post. So you have a dealer that would go on and they would advertise that they're selling whatever it may be. This may be vapes, this may be some form of marijuana. There's different ways that they can search with hashtags and emojis. They would send a DM or they would comment something specific that would let the plug, which is an online dealer, know that they're interested in purchasing something. And then they make a purchase through an app that is very secure, that would maybe disappear, that you wouldn't know that they would be using. It may look like something just like this right here. So this would be a dealer's post. This would be their image to say, hey, I've got some stuff ready. This is going out. You just let us know if you want it. The picture that you can see right there on the right, it looks like cereal. It's branded and looks like it's flavored as just a cereal. So if you saw that laying around, you may not think anything about it because they've thought it through from beginning all the way to the end. They even have their own secret language. This is just a very small fraction of some of the emojis that are used in communicating what these students are doing online. So if they want something, they have a little emoji that if you see a text thread and you don't know what all of these little texts are with all these little images and what they're talking about, well, this is simply an easy way to see exactly what it is that they're asking for. They have their own secret language. So you can see it's really important to understand the world of our teenagers. We need to know why they're doing this, and then we need to know what it is that they're doing and how in the world are they getting it? How are they doing it? Well, they have their own system, and that's why we're talking about this tonight. Another one that's really important to understand right now that is so dangerous is the drug fentanyl. And this is becoming a major issue and very harmful, very dangerous in our kids. We need to understand that it's 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. It's 50 times stronger than heroin. Um, so you got to understand that this is not just a small, simple, recreational drug. This is a deadly drug. As a matter of fact, 77% of all teen overdose deaths involve fentanyl. It's the greatest drug threat in the state of Alabama right now. You can see the death increases from 2020 to 2021 right here in the state of Alabama. It's the drug with the greatest increase of availability here in our state. So what we have to understand is that it's becoming prominent, not just out there somewhere, but right here in our very own state, and it's impacting our kids. You can see in this image just the very smallest dose, a deadly lethal dose of fentanyl just compared to the size of a penny. So it's dangerous and it doesn't take much and it can be hidden. You can see it's baked into pills. They use it for producing fake drugs. You can see a drug that's authentic versus one that is fake. You may not even notice it to the naked eye, and that's what makes it so dangerous. So you have real, you have fake in the Xanax. There's another one. Another new thing that's very concerning is the rainbow fentanyl. Why would you color it? Why would you put different colors to it? It's because of attracting it to young people, because you want them to be attracted to the image of the pill. It looks like candy, and if it looks like candy, it's something that they want to have. So then we ask this question, well, why in the world would something so dangerous be something that our students would want to use? Don't they have better judgment than that? Don't they know? Aren't we telling them? What are they teaching them in school? All of these different things that we try to ask about our kids. But it's no different than any of us in anything that we do. Every time you pick up your phone, it's a form of an addiction. You're being tempted with it every single moment to look over at that phone, to look at a notification, to see what's happening on your social media platform, because it hits something that happens in every one of our brains called dopamine. Many of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you don't even know how it works, but it's a chemical released in the brain that just makes you feel good. So every time you get a notification and you take a look at it and you pick it up, it made you feel good. Every time that you were, wanting a midnight snack and you walked down and you opened up the fridge and you got something good, it made you feel good. Here's how your brain works. This is interesting. On a normal day, your brain produces about 50 nanograms per deciliter. So let's just say your brain's got 50 of this dopamine in your brain, just a normal day. You got up, you're getting ready, you're going to work, nothing out of the normal. You feel okay. It's just a normal average every day. On your worst day, you produce about 40. So this is like the day you woke up and you said, not going to work. I'm going to call in. I don't care if everything burns to the ground, not doing it today. And then let's say your best day, you won the lottery, you're headed to the beach, you've left it all behind. This is like your dream. Well, maybe 100. So you've hit the max at about 100 on your best, absolute, most incredible experience. This is how your brain is functioning and producing things that make you feel good. A few other things, your favorite food, 94. So some of us, it's a brand new year. We got these New Year's resolutions going and we're going to do it. We're going to lose that weight. We're going to get in shape. We're going to do all that, but we're pulled back to that fridge. Well, it's because that favorite food hits that dopamine. It tells your brain, this is good. I've got to have some more. Sex is at 92. Some of you thought, well, that'd probably be more than food. That's why you want food more. Meth is 1,100. Take a look, nearly 10 times over what your brain should be producing. So when someone uses a really hard drug and they hit that incredible high on that first time, it's like something that they've never experienced, and the body, the brain doesn't even know how to process it. So when you're using substances like marijuana or alcohol or nicotine, and it's hitting that sensor, you're getting that dopamine hit, you're getting that high. Your body's responding like, this is euphoric. This is the best feeling I've ever had. I feel good. I don't feel depressed. I don't feel anxious. Well, when our students or anybody else that's struggling with this experience that, they don't want to go back to anything else. The high 100s is where we should be. And look, this is what's hitting right here just with marijuana, alcohol, and nicotine. Double just a normal day. It takes your normal day to the best day ever when you begin using. But what happens is that as you begin using more and more, it doesn't have the same effect. And then eventually you get a lack of dopamine, and then you get this craving. I got to use it again. I've got to find that next hit. I've got to find that next source of whatever it may be. And then you go into survival mode where you're gonna do whatever it takes to find it. You're getting serious. You're getting angry. You'll leave your job. You'll go out. You begin to do all of these different things, and then you take what's called primal action. And this is where you've heard of a family that sold all of their kids Christmas presents because they had to have their fix. They would do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do simply because they were trying to survive. And for many of us, we may not understand this in the big picture, but what I'm hoping to help us understand is that when we talk about our kids and what they're saying and what they're experiencing and what they're feeling, and then they get a little taste of something that takes that edge off, whatever it may be, and they begin that long road without fully understanding the implications of their decisions, of what it's doing to their body and what it's doing to their development. And as our parents, as teachers, as leaders in their community, as mentors in their lives, and adults, and coworkers, everybody around us, we have to help navigate some of these tendencies because we're looking for that next fix. We're looking for that next dopamine high. Let's talk about it just for a second as adults. Some of us as adults will say things like this: if I can just get home from work and I could just take a hot shower, and many people say, if I can just get a glass of wine and I could just sit down and I can relax and play some relaxing music. What you're saying is I need that hit of dopamine that's going to help me cope, that's going to help me relax, that's going to take me out of the moment for just a second. Now, regardless of where you are in that rhythm or that flow, most all of us are looking for something that's going to help us to achieve that. And so with our young people, when we're looking at them and we're watching them make these decisions, it would be easy to be angry. It would be easy just to try to ground them, yell at them, and tell them all the reasons that they should do something different. That's why we can't just say, just dare, or just say no to drugs, all of those things, because it's the deeper implications that's bringing all of this to the surface. And so that's why they're using some of these substances. So let's talk about some of these warning signs that we see. If you're trying to find out, how do I know if these young people are doing this? How do I know if my kids are using? How do I know if I've got a problem on my hand? Well, a couple of things you can look at is you'll see a shift in their mood or their personality. They'll become depressed or less motivated. You'll notice that they're uncooperative. You'll start to notice some behavioral changes. Their social interaction is different. They isolate themselves. They won't make eye contact with you. They make excuses about things that's going on. Maybe they've started a poor hygiene or their appearance. They don't want to, get dressed anymore. They're not wanting to take care of themselves. They're just not quite as put together as maybe they used to be, and you don't know what happened, like what changed, what was the difference. What about their physical health? You may notice that they're just sick all the time, that they don't feel good. They're lethargic. They seem to be lazier than they used to be. What's happening with them? Well, something has shifted, and oftentimes it may be a substance that's causing this issue. So I want to ask you this, and I just want you to stop and think of all the things that you can observe in your own kids or on your own community or those that you have influence with or leadership in. Can you stop and think of some people that you've once said, I don't know why they're doing that. I don't know why they would make those decisions. I don't know why they would harm themselves that way. Well, I'm passionate about this simply because I've experienced it in my own family and in my own life. I've watched family members who I used to say, why are they doing this? Why would they make that decision? Why would they harm themselves? Why don't they just stop? Why do they stop and then go back to it? I used to say things like this. Why are they going to the gas station and buying this stuff? What are they getting out of the gas station? Well, the problem was I didn't understand, number one, the root cause. And then number two, I didn't understand the substances in themselves in which they were using. And then thirdly, I didn't understand how to help. And so what I want us to be able to understand that tonight, out of some of this content of just the substances that are being used and things that people are doing, is I want us to know, how do we help people when they have an issue? And I just believe at the foundation of it all, I believe you have to get down to the heart of the person. And so I want to give you some support strategies that I think are important. And I want to introduce you to one. It's called Rat Park. I don't know if you've ever heard of the story of Rat Park before, but I'm not talking about Disney World. But back before the 70s, researchers had what they conclusively thought proved that if you took rats and you placed them into a cage and you provided them with water or you provided them with drug water, that a rat every time as they watched, they would see that they would gravitate to the drug water. And those rats would go over there and they would sip and they would sip and they would drink and they would drink until eventually they would die. So it was just concluded that if you put someone with an option of something like water, something normal, or you offered them some form of substance, that every time they're going to use the substance, they're going to abuse the substance until it takes the control of their life. Now, that was just thought to be conclusive. That's how we were. That's how we were as nature and as people. And that was our tendencies. But in the 70s, it was all changed in this rat park. So what it was done was, you see something like this where you make it really nice. This doctor named Bruce Alexander, he challenged this theory and he said, well, I'm not just going to take a cage and I'm just not going to put a rat in it with one choice of water and one choice of drug water. He said, no, he said, I'm going to build a rat park. In other words, I'm going to build a Disneyland for rats. I'm going to give them things to play with. I'm going to get them tunnels. I'm going to give them a wheel to run around. I'm going to put other mice in there so that they have a relationship and they have the sociability, all these different things that give them option, that gives them a greater quality of life. And as he began to watch these rats inside of this cage, here's what he noticed. He said, as they all live this life in this nice place, I'm going to give them water and I'm going to give them drug water. And then we're going to observe the difference that it makes with the environment. And here's what he learned, that every rat, although they may be tempted to nibble on the drug water or go to it, no rat ever abused it and no rat ever died inside of this environment of Rat Park. And the conclusive decision was this, was that the environment mattered as much as anything else. In other words, you isolate someone, you isolate and you only give them that option Well, that's what happened. But when you give them other rats or other people, when you give them the ability to socialize, when you give them other things to do, when you keep them busy, they will never, ever do anything different. So what am I saying? Here's what I'm saying is that we try to find the solution to a specific problem. But if we go to the root with our young people, here's what I believe is that the core of who they are, it matters the most. In other words, their friends, what they're doing, what they're involved with, where they spend their time, who they socialize with, all of the different things, the quality of their life and the environment that they're in. So the time that you spend with them, the communication that you have with them, all the conversations that you have, create your own rat park. That's what I'm encouraging you to do, because here's what we've learned. We've learned this in this generation, that this new Gen Z generation, that they really actually value the input of the generations that go before them. You'll see that the biggest majority of them will agree that they feel valued by people in their life who are older than they are. Oftentimes we will try to say that well, we're out of touch and we don't know how to relate to young people, and we don't know their lingo, and we don't know what they're going through, but they feel valued by people in their life who are older than they are. They do say that older people don't always understand the pressures of their generation. So if a young person doesn't feel that we can understand the pressure that they're under, imagine the difference it would make if we just sat down and said, I just want to listen to you. I want to listen about your day. I want to listen to what you're going through. I want you to be able to tell me, what are you experiencing? Why do you feel this depression? Where does this anxiety come from? What's the weight that you feel that's on your shoulders? They would say that those in positions of authority in their life, like parents and teachers, have their best interest in mind. So when you're talking to a young person and when you're communicating the dangers of these things and you're trying to get to the root cause of the circumstances that they're in, they actually appreciate. They know that you have their best interest in mind. They may look at you like they don't, but they feel that you have their best interest in mind. They often look for people who are older for advice. They welcome positive criticism. And they say this right here. I think this is important to understand. They say that I meet regularly with someone who is a mentor with me. And the biggest majority of them don't. They don't have somebody. And so this is what I want us to say. When you create this environment for them, when you create a place for the people that's around you, they're saying, I need someone. I don't have somebody that I'm regularly connecting with who's helping me. So it's our responsibility to the best that we can, not only to understand what it is that they're doing, what it is that they're using, and why, and the dangers of it. But again, back to that root cause of what we can do to help them. Another thing that I'll share with you that I think makes a big difference is that you can just help change the environment by providing more information. So when you're talking about things to do and ways to help them, well, change the provide information, like provide information for what happens if you do this. Uh, Give them all the details you can give. Prevention is one of the greatest resources and tools that we have. There are so many great things that we could just to provide information. Enhance skills, give them those coping skills. Try to help them understand how to cope with those depression, the anxiety, all the weight that they feel. They need the ability to be able to have the coping mechanisms that they need. Provide them support, change consequences, sometimes grounding, taking the car away, restricting some things. If you're an administrator in your school, change the consequences for being caught with vapes or any other substance that may be. We can do that. We can change policies in a lot of different ways. We can change the physical design to make areas safer for some of them, and we can change some of the access that they have. So we have so many different strategies to help support our kids in the different environments that we have. None of it's necessarily a one size fits all, but they are options and abilities that we can start somewhere to go, where can we carve this out in our home, in our schools, and in our community to try to serve and provide for these kids, because they're looking for people who are ahead of them, mentors in their life, people to invest in them to help them with these very things. The last thing I would say that I think is probably the most important thing is to provide these kids with purpose. It was stated that in Portugal, that they had the worst drug problem that there had been. I mean, it was just rampant in their area. And so here's what they did. They decided after trying so many different things that they were just going to take and all the investment that they were putting into all of these different strategies, and they were going to try something very different. They were going to go far out, and they were going to invest all of these resources in grants and funding to help provide jobs and provide startup for people who were coming out of addiction or active in addiction to try to get them back on their feet. And here's what they learned after a long time of running this is they learned that the jail rate, the death rate, the substance use rate, all of this began to drop in their area. And so what they began to ask people is what made a difference? How did this change your life? And here's what they said. They said we had purpose. We went from having no purpose to now we had something to give our life to. We had a purpose to get up in the morning, to put our effort into something, to put our life in something. And so we were able to rise above the stuff that we were in. And so I'm encouraging all of us in all of our influence, whatever it is that you do, if you're a mom, if you're a dad, if you're an administrator, if you're an educator, you have influence and you have the ability to help these young people find purpose in their life. And when they have a purpose and understand that I don't need anything that's going to prevent me from fulfilling my purpose, from living my life on purpose. And every day that you have a conversation with a young person, you can instill purpose in their life. You can let them know that there's a reason they're on their planet, that they're valuable, that they're loved, and that they matter, and that anything that they're going through, that you want to help them, that you want to support them, and that you want to help them make good decisions. You want to help carry the weight of some of the anxiety or the depression or whatever it is that they're feeling, the hardships that they're walking through as young people. Many of us, we live through a lot of the external things that our kids still face, but there's some deep internal issues that our kids are facing today, some of those pressures that we never had to walk through, but it's our responsibility now to help them. So as you look back over the landscape of just some of the things that we talked about, you may be able to identify some of these in your area and in the context of where you are. And I know the Addiction Prevention Coalition has so many great resources that can help you in doing that. Community coalitions just like ours that I lead in the city of Alabaster, Alabama, we have incredible resources that can help you do that as well. Another great resource is Compact. Compact was started several years ago to help our young people in our communities with issues just like this. They work in a lot of our communities, and I know many of you are familiar with them, especially if you're in the school systems. But there are so many great resources to try to help us band together and make a difference in the lives of our young people. So here's what I want to do. We have just a few minutes left, and I just want to open it up if there's any questions or anything that I know this was a lot. I wanted to keep it within an hour. This will be available on demand later if you want to go back and you want to watch again just specific things. But I did want to open it up for any questions. Does anybody have anything that they would like to ask or expand on any at all? If you just want to jump on video or audio and ask if you do, or if you want to post something in the chat as well, that's available. That's a great question. The dopamine, how much dopamine does the brain release with meth use? That was up around 1100. So about 10 times the amount of what we would produce on our best day. So very dangerous. Yeah. Would love to share this presentation with the focus teachers at our school. Absolutely. Yeah, you're welcome to any of this, or if I can help you in any way, I would be glad to do that as well. Are you available to speak to student mentors, peer helpers? Yes, Amy, absolutely. I spend a lot of time doing this, especially with young people. A lot of times we have these conversations, and it's a lot of us that are at this table a lot. And, we may dig into this a good bit more and in depth, but with young people, I think that's really where we're the most advantageous. So absolutely, I can certainly do that. Can you comment on use and abuse? I feel like marijuana is so normalized and wish it wasn't the case with our young people. Yeah, I do think that's the case. I think what we've done is we have normalized it so much that we've minimized the impact. And when we paint a picture culturally that there's not a lot of harm to it, that there's not a lot of risk to it, it's oftentimes because it's coming in candy and the forms of delivery seems so normalized. That's going to be the attitude toward it, and it's really dangerous because our kids don't understand what it is that they're using or how they're taking it. And so I think what we have to do is work really hard, especially in the prevention world, to get as much of that information as we can out there. A lot of times, what I find, and I'm sure many of you do as well, is just by presenting the opportunity for kids to ask questions. Sometimes kids just don't have an opportunity or an outlet to ask a question. So through some of the simple, presentations that we do like this, some of the most important things happen to me after the presentation, standing in the front talking to kids who just have more questions because they don't have an outlet to be able to ask these questions. So I think that's very important. It's a great question. And for anybody who would like it, this is my email. So if we can provide anything else to you, we'd be glad to do that for you. So feel free to send out any questions if you have it, or would like any information, any of the sources for any of this content or anything else would be great. All right. Anybody else? Just real quick. Anybody? All right. Thank you all for being a part of this so much. Thank you all. Have a great night.